This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Welcome, everyone, to another delicious share of Orchos Chaim lha'Rosh, as we are holding by number 13 and 14, Be'ezus Hashem Yisbarach, sponsored by my good friend Yoel Klugman and family, Lili Nishmas Mishul Ben Moshe, the Chava Bas Yehuda Cohen Klugman, and for the successful shidduchim of their children, for Shalema, for my Rebbe Miriam Liba Bas Devara, Chaim Ben Rachel, that they should have a refuah Shalema B'Seich Shercha Yisrael. And number 13, Yud Gimel, is a very interesting one. Short and concise, Shelo Yasiach Al Koshel Bracha. You should not talk over the cup of blessing. Now this means when there is a mezumin, well, especially if there's a minyan, and we bench ala kais, when we pour the cup of wine for benching, we shouldn't talk until the benching is finished and the bracha is made over the wine. Now, the fact that the Rosh gave this such attention, I mean, there's only 154 steps to a successful life, and he makes one of them that you shouldn't talk over the kosher benching, is very interesting. And the reason why, once you pour the cup of wine, I mean, we know you're not allowed to talk during benching, but why, once you pour the cup of wine? So actually this is a Gemara. It's a Gemara Masechtas Brachas, where the Gemara says, beferish, that you shouldn't talk once you pour a cup of wine. I believe that the answer to this can be explained. I'm going to give you an example. A wife has an anniversary, and she's celebrating with her husband. She's going to eat out with her husband that evening in a restaurant. And she has stuff to do outside of the house, and she gets dressed. She's a nice dresser, and actually she was going to take care of things. She had a business meeting, so she dressed well. And then when she comes home, she starts changing her clothing. So her daughter said to her, "Why are you changing, Ma? You look great. You look spiffy." She said, "Well, I'm going out with your father for our anniversary." "But Mom, you look great." She said, "Yes, I know, but I want your father to know that I put on something special for him." And it's the same thing with the kosher bracha. When we pour that cup of wine is in honor of Hashem. We're going to say thank you to Hashem. Kais Yeshua is Esa uv'shem Hashem Ekra. Cup of salvation I lift, and in the name of Hashem I call. A cup of wine gives importance to what we're doing. And we want to make it clear that this is not an after-dinner drink. It's not an after-dinner drink. It's in honor of Hashem. So therefore, once we pour it, we don't talk, because then it won't be noticeable that it's done for the sake of benching. You see, that's very important. It has to be noticeable that we're doing it in honor of Hashem. The kosher bracha, which Gemara says 10 things about the kosher bracha. We make sure to be dressed properly with the kosher bracha. Rav Moshe was very makbid to always have a hat on by benching. And of course, a jacket. And we know we wash it inside and out. Different things. So this highlights that it's an honor of Hashem. Now, the fact that so much significance was attached to this to make it a special step in a successful life, Rav Spitzer, in his Sefer Chai Avram on Orchos Chaim, says that the Rosh says that we have to have gvulin. We have to make ourselves rules, borders. And that's why he put this next to what he just said yesterday about shelo yistakel, you shouldn't look at a woman. Both are borders. Not talking that a kosher bracha is a border, and not looking at a woman. If you don't keep the rules, you'll come to break the more serious rules. Now, talking about not talking, Yudalid, he moves on to more practical issues, more common issues. Shelo yisaper mishiyasil baruch she'amar. You shouldn't talk from when you start baruch she'amar ad sheyasayim tfilas lachash, until you finish the silent Shemona Esrei. Now, the reason why you're not allowed to talk in between baruch she'amar and yishtabach is because the Rabbeinu Yoina says baruch she'amar and yishtabach were enacted as a bracha before and a bracha after Pesukei Zimra. And therefore, it's a hefsek to speak in between. And people have to know this. They come to shul, somebody comes in late, and they say, how you doing? You feel funny, and you want to answer. You're not supposed to talk then. Now, people that weren't brought up in yeshiva, where the Rebbe was going around, shh. Some people are ignorant of this. The tzibur has to be educated. You have to educate your children. This is like talking out in the middle of a bracha. Not allowed to talk. It's interesting that those that daven Svard on Shabbos, they don't say Baruch She'amar till later. But Ashkenazim, they say Baruch She'amar right away. They can't talk during Pesukei Zimra. Now, what about in between Yishtabach and the bracha of Yotzer Or? So that's a Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi says that somebody who speaks in between Yishtabach and the bracha of Yotzer Or, you might say, well, what's the problem? I finished Yishtabach, I didn't start the next bracha yet. Of course, after Yotzer Or, you can't speak by those brachas, but what's wrong with speaking between Yishtabach and Yotzer Or? That's a Yerushalmi. Hasach bein Yishtabach liYotzer Or. That means that we know that if somebody was going to a Jewish battle, and he was yorei me'avera shebiyadai, if he was afraid of a sin, he's turned away. And the Yerushalmi says, talking in between Yishtabach and Yotzer Or is a sin where you turn away from battle. You might not have siyata d'shmaya, you can get hurt in battle. Now, then the Rosh continues, nor during Chazaras Hashatz, when the Shliach Tzibur says over the Tefillah. And here the Rosh, according to Rav Chaim Kanievsky and Sefer Hashamar Choisav, argues on the Magen Avram and the Mishnah Berurah, Rosh is a region, but he argues and he says, Elim came b'divrei Torah, unless you're learning, or b'dvar mitzvah, or occupied in a mitzvah, or lasei shalom, or to extend a greeting, not a conversation, but to say, oh, how are you? Or la'azir shalom, and to respond to a greeting. Now, the Mishnah Berurah and the Magen Avram say that even divrei Torah, dvar mitzvah is also, you're supposed to stand and be mechaven. The Rosh argues, however, even the Rosh only argues if there is 9 people that are answering Amen. So if there's 9 people that are answering Amen, so then, according to the Rosh, you can learn. However, if there aren't 9 people, we should know that the Rosh writes, and it's brought down in the Tur, that the congregation has to listen to answer Amen. If you don't have 9 people that are listening to the brachas, then you're making a chaz and say a bracha levatala. And if you don't have 9 people listening, then it's almost a bracha levatala. So the Rosh is not talking about. The Rosh is talking about if you're in a big minyan and there's anyway 9 people, then the Rosh says you would be allowed to learn. As I said, Magen Avram and the Mishnah Berurah says not that way. But Moshe, I remember that when the Chazan was saying the Chazaras Hashatz, he stood ramrod straight. as if he was davening another Shemona Esrei. I remember there were rare times that I had to ask him something. During Chazal Tzashatz, I had to come around in front of where he was standing and get his attention. It was like he was davening another Shemona Esrei. Another issue over here is whether in shuls they should go around collecting with the pushka during Chazal Tzashatz. So many poskim say no. Here the Rosh says that you would have been allowed to do a Dvar Mitzvah. Again, that would be only if you have 9 people besides you listening and answering. Now, it's interesting because in the Chai Avram, by Rav Spitzer, Zichron Levracha, he says a different shot over here. He says that the Rosh is not arguing. The Rosh is talking about when somebody davened already. Let's say he's in Shema Shabbos, and he davened already, and he's by another minyan, and he's sitting there. So the Rosh says, you can't talk during Chazal Shatz. Even if you davened already, you heard Chazal Shatz already. But then you're allowed to learn. You're allowed to do a Dvar Mitzvah. Since you were already Yaitz. He's not talking about if you didn't hear Chazal Shatz. It's a very interesting pshat that he says in the Rosh. The Makar Chaim says yet another pshat that the Rosh is talking about somebody who's giving horah, which is a very interesting pshat. I will add over here that the sin of talking during davening is a very serious one. We know that the word seva, hoary old age, is a famous abbreviation for shtika yafa b'shas hatfila. A person who is careful to be quiet during davening can lead to old age. So it's well worth it. We know in my shul, I say the Mishaberach of the Teisus Yom Tov. I always felt that a good way to get people to be quiet is everybody wants a bracha. Teisus Yom Tov gives a bracha. That person should have nachas from their children and live healthy to see them go l'chuppah, l'maisim tovim, in the schools of being quiet in shul. So therefore, it's a very big incentive to be careful in this area. I'd like to thank you for joining me in this share. Please tell your friends about it. If you'd like to sponsor a day, it's $180, 718-916-3100, rmmwsi@aol.com. It's now Monday night. I still do not have a sponsor for my Tuesday evening share by Rabbi Landau. If you want to get it in before the wire, email me at rmmwsi@aol.com. You could either call me or text me at 718-916-3100. $300 to be a sponsor, $360 to be a postal sponsor. The share is held weekly at Avenue L and East 9th by Rabbi Landau in Brooklyn at 10 to 10 p.m. And, of course, it's aired, and I send out tapes and CDs. Thank you for joining us, and have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.